All right, welcome everyone. This is the final session in this first very productive day. I hope you're enjoying it. And we're going to end with a grantee panel. And the topic is really going to be, how to mitigate adverse effects in trauma exposed youth and lead them to experience hope. And as we know, there are some topics, A through F topics that SRAE grantees are required to cover. And we've also asked the panel to really tell us how they infuse hope into those particular topics like goal setting and self-regulation and personal affirmation. So I am going to take the liberty now, and ladies, I'm going to read all of your bios. So if you could just, kind of raise your hands there when I read your bio, so people know who I'm talking about. First today, we have Barbara Jean, and she serves as the Senior Program Manager of Be Strong International in Miami, Florida. And she has spent 6 years overseeing SRAE programs as a facilitator. She's been a youth development coordinator and a program specialist. Barbara Jean has a master's in social work, and she has also developed, and this is important, trauma-informed programming. And she works to ensure the effective incorporation of A through F topics in serving disadvantaged youth. So you want to give us a wave there, Barbara Jean? And next we are going to hear from Ramona Ellison. And Ramona is the founder and executive director of Little Rock Skills, and she serves the youth in Central Arkansas, and she's been doing that for over 20 years. Ramona has authored books on developing strong character, and she teaches youth both in middle and high schools SRAE education. She has been a dedicated champion of youth. She holds a degree in psychology, and she likes to say that they battle social ills one child at a time. Our final presenter today is going to be Jonelle Zachary. And Jonelle is a youth serving professional and community engagement coordinator with Healthy Visions. And that is an organization based in Cincinnati, Ohio. They work with school-based and at-risk youth. Jonelle has dual degrees in philosophy and economics and an executive MBA from Xavier University. She is also a certified sexual risk avoidance specialist and also has a certification in trauma competent care and mental health first aid. So welcome to all of you ladies. And I want to just let our audience know too that we will have some time afterwards. Here you can put in your chat, your questions and answers, and we'll try to get those. So we're going to start with Barbara Jean. So Barbara, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. My name is Barbara Jean, and I am from Be Strong International in Miami, Florida. And I am really excited to share with you all today how we use hope and growth mindset to teach SRAE and incorporate the A through F within the work that we do. Now, before I get started, I think it would be appropriate to start with a story. And this story is about my son, Judah. And for the first 5 months of his life, he spent it in the neonatal intensive care unit due to him being born prematurely at 24 weeks. Within the first 2 weeks of his life, we were informed that if he survives, and that was a big if, there would be a high chance that he would have severe physical and or cognitive disabilities. But if we surrounded him with a rich environment, he would be able to develop into his best self. And this was a very difficult time for my family and I because we never had experienced anything like this before. But I had a friend of mine who was one of my closest friends, and she's a charge nurse at the NICU that my son was admitted into. And she said, like, this is tough, for you and for me, but I've seen miracles happen. And whatever you put into him is what you will, get out. So whenever I would walk through the NICU hallway, there would be pictures on the wall of different babies who were like Judah, who had similar stories, and they were either meeting their milestones or exceeding them. And that gave our family hope. So when Judah came home, we were intentional about engaging him in ways to support his growth and development. And fast forward to now, Judah is thriving. He is a typical 1-year-old. He loves to run around. He loves throwing his food on the floor. He loves making my husband and I sing the wheels on the bus. But the trick is you have to do the gestures, because if you don't do the gestures, Judah is not happy. So I'm sharing this because this is a story that inspires me. And you might be wondering, well, how does this fit into the work that you do at Be Strong? Well, many of the youth that we serve at Be Strong, like Judah, have the odds set against them. They may be born into broken families that result in firsthand exposure to substance abuse, sexual abuse, mental illness, or domestic violence. And as a social worker, we learned that these are important things that could determine the trajectory or even development that an adolescent or youth experiences. Many youth, like Judah, are told by at least one significant person in their life that the odds determine who they will become and what they can achieve. Sometimes it's a teacher. Sometimes we see students struggling in the schools and they're like, well, like if you keep down that route, you're never going to be anything. Just not really knowing how to guide youth who may show signs and symptoms that they are in trouble, or not even learning how to identify, signs and symptoms of trauma. Many youth, like Judah, need access to environments rich in hope and support from others to help them achieve high standards. At Be Strong, we are able to be bridges of hope to youth, providing them with tools to make better decisions about their personal life, their professional life, their social relationships when it comes to dating and friendships, which then leads to them developing a more promising future for themselves and in the communities where they reside. As SRAE providers, we have the opportunity to show youth through the services that we offer that despite the trauma that youth have experienced, or the risky behaviors that they're exposed to, or even the negative labels that are placed on them, because kids will be kids, right? They can become transitional characters. And basically what a transitional character is one who in a single generation can change the course of an entire lineage. So just because someone grows up in an abusive, emotionally destructive environment, they can break that cycle so that generations downstream will have a supportive foundation to build their lives upon. And in SRAE education, we are able to teach youth that they can expect someone to love them enough to value their boundaries. And a lot of youth that we serve, they don't have access to seeing what healthy relationships look like. They might not even have ever been to a wedding. And I remember when I first started in the SRAE field, and I was co-facilitating with someone learning the ropes, and they asked, we were doing a activity on visualize, your future, if you want to get married, what does that look like? And a lot of kids were just like, they were coming up with all of these great ideas. And the facilitator asked, how many kids been to a wedding? Maybe like a few kids out of a classroom of maybe 30, maybe 3 raise their hand. But if you were to ask how many kids been to a funeral, everyone put their hand up. So this just goes to show that some of our youth don't have exposure to even the concepts or the things that we teach, but we are the bridges to those things to bring it to life for them. So as facilitators, we're able to help youth gain reference points, kind of like how I had that opportunity to look down the NICU hallway to see similar stories. These youth through our programs are able to then reference how to practice self-regulation, how to set goals for their future, to understand what is marriage, because the goal is to have a healthy marriage, right? And I know that one of the things that we teach within SRAE is yes, get married, but have a healthy marriage, because it's in those healthy marriages that families will be able to succeed, and so will their future children, and so will themselves individually. So I hope that this compels us all to grow from any part of our mindset that might be fixed, to believe that teens will be teens, because like Judah, with focused effort and support from others, we can help youth obtain optimal health, where they will be able to successfully incorporate self-regulation, healthy decision-making, and effective future orientation within their development. Thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure.
Thank you, Barbara Jean. That was great. And now we all need to see a picture of Judah. So that's that. We'll see if we can work that out. But very good. Yes. I love the story of you walking down the hall in the NICU and getting hope. So very, very important. Thank you so much. All right. Ramona Ellison from Little Rock, Arkansas. Ramona.
Good afternoon. It is an absolute privilege to be here with you all today. I am overwhelmed at the information that has already been shared. Truly enjoyed our breakout, and I am honored to sit on this panel with these extraordinary women. Hope. When I consider hope in the field of SRAE, so many things come to my mind, but I'd like to take you back to the beginning for me. Just indulge me for a moment, because this is kind of a celebratory time for me. It was about this time 20 years ago that I was first introduced to this great field of service. There was a local program in our middle schools that would go into a school for 5 days, do presentations. The cool thing about this program is that they invited people from the community to come in and volunteer as table leaders. And I was invited to do just that. I sat with my 4 assigned girls each day, and I listened to the presentations alongside them, and then led them through a series of discussion questions at the end of each class. And so at the end of the last day, one of my girls, who was a 6th grader, I will never forget this, she said to me, "Miss Mona, I'm so glad y'all came to our school. This summer was really, really hard for me. I was nervous about coming to middle school. My mom even had to take me to the doctor because I was having stomach issues. Like, it was just that bad. And I always thought when you start middle school, you start dating. And when you start dating, that means sex." And I was floored. Like, this child was sure that middle school equaled dating and dating equaled sex. Then she said this, she said, "Now I know I have a choice, and I can choose to wait." That summer, she had hit a brick wall of feeling like she was about to be forced into a world that she was not ready for. And just 5 days of presentations, and some crazy lady from her community came into her school and gave her hope. Now, a few years later, that program died due to a lack of funding. And I vowed that one day I was going to be able to bring this important message back to the students of Little Rock. And in 2013, I was able to join forces with Choosing to Excel as a sub-grantee, and did just that. It has been my absolute joy to equip and empower teens with this great message of hope. That's what it's always been to me. It's always been about hope. Hope is simply giving them something to look forward to and the tools to attain it. That's what we've heard today, right? And when I look closely at how we do what we do, I see hope in 3 ways. I see it through, first, our interactive activities, because it's not enough to just give a message, but to give it in a way that makes kids want more. When they simply look forward to you coming each day with this anticipation of what's going to happen next, that's a baby step of instilling hope. And that doesn't happen in a lecture. Our fearless leader, Miss Thelma Moten, always says, "Don't you go in there and bore my babies." And I have to tell you that my favorite type of activities are experiential learning activities. Those are my favorite. That's when you do an activity and it makes you feel something and personalize its message and own it and ultimately apply it. Now, practically speaking, what they may look like is this. I don't want to use an activity from a specific curriculum, so I'm going to use a game called Risk as an example for you. I learned this game from a colleague and typically use it before I introduce the program. Some of you may even be familiar with it, but it's where all of the students write the word risk, R-I-S-K, at the top of their paper with lines between each letter to form columns. So I roll a pair of dice and they all collect points, everybody. Then I throw in a new rule. If I roll a double, you all lose the points in the column. But you have the choice to sit down before I roll again and keep your points until the next column. Then later I introduce another rule. If I roll snake eyes, 2 ones, you lose all the points in all the columns. Guys, the kids are so intrigued and excited and want more, and all the while they learn about risks and ultimately real risks that can cost you more than points on a piece of paper. So much of the SRAE curricula that is available is intentional about including interactive activities that makes them want more and look forward to each day of presentations. Even in considering the A through F criteria, our lessons teach them to look ahead with goal setting and healthy decision making, teaches them how to avoid different risky behaviors to ensure a bright future. When we can do it in a way that just makes them look forward to the next day and the next day and the next day, that's a win for hope. The second way I see hope infused in what we do is through intentional relationships. In our SRAE presentations, this is very necessary because we don't want to spend so much time giving the students information that we forget that we're changing individual lives. We are offering a message that can change their trajectory and that of their families for generations. So before we can speak into their lives, we have to be intentional about building relationships. Build relationships right there within the classroom so that we can impact their relationships outside of the classroom. I think Paul just alluded to that in group 14 in the last session that we saw. In the social development theory, we're seen as the MKO, right? That more knowledgeable other. But we can't pass that knowledge on to these underdeveloped brains without relationship. Some practical ways to establish that relationship in the classroom is by referring to them by name. That's easy, right? We can use name tags, name tents, desk placards, anything like that to easily be able to refer to the students by their name. Believe it or not, I just learned how to use Alexa this weekend. Forgive me. But I'm telling you, Alexa does not respond until you say her name, right? The information or the words that you're saying, they aren't for her until she hears her name. I call it the Alexa theory. I'm gonna use that later. Intentionally engage the kids in a way that they want to hear the powerful message of SRAE. That's a win for hope. The third way I see hope in what we do is by reminding them of their intrinsic value. When we constantly, continually, daily remind them of their values, separate from their actions and choices, it opens an opportunity to share this message of hope with them in a very special way. When students know they are not being judged, which can sometimes be an assumption that they have before we even open our mouths, and they know that we believe in them and have the highest of expectations for them, they are set up for success. The power of high expectations and what we as the facilitator believe about the students that we're teaching comes across in every way, in our tone, our posture, student placement, student engagement, and simply believing that they can do what we're telling them they can do. It speaks to their intrinsic value and how highly we hold them to set the goal of optimal health and work towards it. Hope is infused in everything we do in this field. Without it, they may not know the information, they may not care about the information, their future may be bleak. But with hope, they are optimistic, empowered, and ready to take on personal responsibility of risk avoidance. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Ramona. And I think I could speak for everyone on the Zoom call today that if Ramona Ellison leaned into you, the trajectory of your life would probably change. And you're definitely a force to be reckoned with. And congratulations on the 20 years and the vision that you had. Wonderful. All right, and now we will hear from Janelle Zachary. Janelle's from, as I said before, Healthy Visions in Cincinnati, Ohio. Janelle?
Thank you, Marianne, and thank you to all of you who are still on the call and tracking along with us. And I must be honest, I came prepared with what to share, but after hearing Barbara Jean and after hearing Ramona Ellison, Ramona may not know this of me, but Marianne, that is absolutely true. If Ramona leans in, you know it when you see it when she's in the room. And I'll tell you why, because she was responsible for training me. And my first, I know I see your face, I see your eyes. When she was responsible for training me when I stepped into the world of the services that we provide for the youth. And that was through Ascend. And so again, I remember approaching Ramona and just letting her know how much she inspired me, one, by her level of presentation, and two, by the level of passion that she put into what she is speaking, because that's how you know she believes it and she imparts it. And so my friends on the call, we always say here at our organization, you cannot impart what you do not possess. And that's because you can feel it when you walk into a room. So Miss Ramona, thank you. And I am so happy to sit on this esteemed panel with all of you. So I have a quick question, because we've been sitting for a little bit. And like I said, I came prepared to do something, but I shifted to something else. So Marianne, please forgive me. Can you please, if you're within the sounds of my voice and you're listening to this call right now, if you could just do me a favor and drop it in the chat. All I want you to do is drop one thing in the chat, and that's a number one. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I just want to hear from you all together is, how many of you all are passionate about what you do? Drop a number one in the chat. How many of you believe in making impact? Drop a number two in the chat. How many of you care deeply about your role, its impact, and the things that you do for the people that you serve? Drop a three in the chat. I thank you for your responsiveness right now. As you guys can see by the flood of chat, the flood of messages that are coming through the chat, there are a lot of people that are passionate about what they do, that believe in making impact, and that care. And so I think it was on our panel session just right before this one where someone I think Paul had mentioned it. People don't care about how much you know until you know how much you care. And that's impactful for us, because here at Healthy Visions, there's things that we do day in and day out when we're working with our youth to infuse hope. And again, we understand that it is about ensuring that we're giving a holistic approach. We understand that we want to talk about the risk avoidance behaviors. We do want to shed a light on the success sequence. We do want to shed a light on the ability for our young people to make decisions that impact their health and impact their future. So again, I want to share it in this capacity, in this respect. And I may be aging myself a little bit, but I heard it years ago when someone told me, or asked me the question, are you a thermometer or a thermostat? And I got to thinking, I said, oh, well, I'm not really sure. Thermometer or a thermostat? Well, what does that really mean? And they said, are you a thermometer? As you think about your friends, are you a thermometer or a thermostat? And I said, oh man, I don't really know how to answer this. And so the person continued and said, a thermometer ebbs and flows with the ways of this culture and its friends. So when their friends are up, they're up. When their friends are down, they're down. Hot, cold, however you identify. However, a thermometer sets the tone. A thermostat sets the tone. A thermostat sets the temperature for the environment in which they reside. And so my friends, just understand the empowerment that you have to be a thermostat. And I say that for all of you, because again, when we walk into our rooms or our buildings or our corridors, we get to set the pace and the tone. So when people ask, what is one way that we infuse hope into our SRAE topics A through F, is we have to set the pace, whether that is being a role model, whether that is classroom engagement, whether that is understanding the content and embodying it and understanding what we're getting ready to learn and what we're getting ready to teach, because we're learning as we're delivering the message, that we first must engage. And I think Miss Ramona said it best. Engaging means, and I really love what she said, Alexa will not respond until you call her name. The same can be proverbially true for our young people within our reach. know them by name. See, when I walked into Healthy Visions, one of the things that we used to say was, you can change your story. What you did doesn't have to be what you continue to do, right? In an approach to be non-judgmental. But we understood a little something about that message is that in our effort to impact, we may be implementing a little bit of trauma scope and sequence. Why? Because we don't want to demean or devalue anyone that's within our reach. We want to empower. So what did we shift to? We shifted to the ability of sharing. You are these things. They are infinite truths. No matter what, you are lovable, you are valuable, and you matter. Because when our young people can understand that they matter, and that they are lovable, and that they are valuable, then the world around them and the safe spaces that we create while we walk into the room with them are privy to a learning environment. Because again, we understand that if you're not ready to receive, you may not hear the message anyways. And so it's not so much about what we know to impart, it's what we can share and exchange as a result. So one of the things that we do within our agency is we memorize the mission. We go in and we say, what is our mission? When we're working with young people, what is our mission? Our mission is to provide quality youth educational programs and content that not only inspire, that educate and assist and empower our young people to make decisions towards their optimal health for a happier, hopeful future, right? And so when we think about that, and we think about why we walk and step into new environments, we understand that every young person is lovable, they're valuable, and they matter. So we try to learn their names in every single classroom. We try to engage them with them sharing with us, what do they hope to get out of this session? And therefore, how can we help? What do they need to see from us? So that way we get a little more buy-in from them for what they expect to see and what they want their space to feel like as we navigate through these topics. But most importantly, we do understand the value of SRE education. And that I love the example that Ms. Ramona gave, and is that this is something that I thought I had to do, but I have a choice. And so again, we infuse that by inserting elements like the success sequence. I think for so many of our young people, they want a blueprint, they want a formula. And so how do we provide that formula for them in a way that is tangible and palatable for them? By infusing those measurements and those increments of hope and sprinkling it all throughout our lessons, and just reinforcing the fact that when you're in this space, we are here for you, and that you are lovable, you are valuable, and you matter, that they receive the message, and that they have resources to come back to if they do want additional resources that our community then can step in and provide. And so again, I don't want to take up too much of our time, because I know we're getting close, but Marianne, is this time to turn it back over to you? Because I don't want to go on and on and on with examples and sequences. I'll stop here so that way I can give you space.
Well, thank you, Jonelle, and thank you for, I didn't know that you were in the class with Ramona when we kind of decided on this panel. So that was a cool connection there. And thank you for all you're doing and the way that you are encouraging us to be those thermostats. That's an excellent way to look at that. I love this kind of visualization that's going on. So right now we only have 10 minutes left. And if you want to ask these very knowledgeable ladies anything, you could put your questions or your comments in the chat. And while that's coming in, while those questions are coming in, if there's anything you want to add, I will let you do that now. If you have points that you want to continue to make, maybe Barbara Jean has found that picture of Judah. I don't know, but we will, be open for any questions that you have for these ladies. And I will tell you this, one of the things that was said today that by Dr. Hellman that really stuck with me, he said that hope is the best predictor of the ability for a child to thrive. That was an astounding statement to me. And I don't know about you, but I'm thinking about right now, we're at a time where mental health issues have really come to the top of our national awareness, especially with our young people in terms of depression and anxiety and, suicide ideation. It seems to me, and I'd like you all to comment on this briefly in the time left here, that hope, this message of giving hope could not be more timely. So your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I really appreciated Dr. Hellman's talk. In some of my breakout sessions, I have shared that it was insightful, and I am thankful for it. Why? Because it's giving language in areas where maybe we didn't have it before, or there's a body of research and there's a body of work that helps explain what some of our young people might go through, but they're breaking through barriers all the time, or maybe they just hit a roadblock and they're just like, I don't know what to do here. Because he had mentioned something, Marianne, and it was when in distress situations, we focus on avoiding rather than achieving. And so when I get here, now what? I can't do this. I'm not built for this. And so again, when I speak from that place, I'm speaking from that place because that was me at one point. I've gotten so far, and now what? And so when he said something, that hopefulness is one of the most distinctive measures and the biggest predicator of success, I know it because I felt it, but I didn't have language for it. But I also know that's true of some of our young people that are pushing and pushing and pushing. And then they get to that certain place and they go, what now? And so what inspires me most about the work that we're doing is we're giving them the tools for the what next and the what now, and resources on how to handle that distress. Because a trauma competent care, they always push us to ask not what behavior the young person is doing, but what happened. And so again, if we can approach it with that scope and understand in the background that hope is a big predicator for how we work through this together, then, and as Dr. Hellman suggested, he had to shift his mentality even, and instead of saying what is wrong, but rather what is right. Those are all incredible messages. And I think not only that's why I'm thankful, and it was so insightful for me. So absolutely, I think those are that paradigm shift can really help when approaching topics within SRAE. I'll pass it over to my panelists.
All right, we do have a question here we want to get to. Someone, Lucy, has asked, have you all incorporated mentoring programs in your SRAE project to build hope? And if so, how have you done that? If you want to share, if you have incorporated those mentoring programs.
As a sub-grantee, we are limited to classroom presentations right now, so I'm going to yield to the other panelists.
Hi, so within Be Strong, we are able to incorporate in-school and out-of-school programming. And I think one of the things that we have to understand about hope is that hope is a day-to-day thing, right? So there's not like a lesson that you can teach about hope. It's about every encounter, every interaction, and intentionally letting youth know that they're able to achieve and access goals or whatever lessons that we're incorporating, letting them know that this is possible for you to apply even now, and helping them identify ways to make it real in time. So I think even when it comes to incorporating hope, even in mentorship programs, it's you can do it in SRAE courses within the classroom, and then you can do it if you have clubs outside. You can do it if you're doing youth leadership council or clubs. But it's trying to incorporate it into the day-to-day things, because hope is not a one-time thing. It's an encounter, it's a mindset. It's helping them begin to see that it's possible for them.
Okay, so you do have mentoring programs then, so that would be yes. If you don't mind, I'm going to just go to another question here so we can get to it. Same person, Lucy, asks also, how have you all found helpful to introduce marriage to kids who have little knowledge or experience of it?
Well, I can tell you one of my favorite things that we actually got from our mother company, Choosing to Excel. Before we began our presentations, there was a couple, which nobody knew they were a couple, The lady would come in, she would give her presentation. The second day, the guy would come in, he'd give his presentation. And the third day, they'd come in together, which was so impactful because the kids had already bought into them as individuals. And then to see them and know that they were married, especially for kids who a lot of them had not seen marriages or healthy marriages, was really, really impactful. And so even if you've got couples within your organization, that may be a great way to let the kids see what healthy marriages look like.
Very interesting. Anyone else on the panel? We literally have about 1 minute.
And I think even inviting married couples to speak into maybe like as a guest speaker, because I don't think I saw my first healthy marriage probably at 19 years old. So it would be awesome if we can give students those opportunities within our curriculum to then see it come to life.
Janelle, final comment?
I don't want to run out of time, but to answer the first question, we also ran SRAE programming in a mentoring session, and we followed a cohort of students for 16 weeks. And so what that allowed us to do is break up components of the curriculum and deduce it down and leave buffer days for them to consult us privately or to walk with resources, et cetera, like their counselor, teachers, safe, trusted adult, to walk them to additional resources if needed. We found very statistically significant results in doing so, and we hope to continue doing that work. But it is a lofty project and a big goal that requires a lot of manpower. And I have more information about that. And as for marriage, you don't know what you don't know, and someone has to expose it to you. And so would you rather someone expose it to you in a positive, safe, developed way, or in one that may be a little unstable or maybe a little questionable in the way that it is presented? Like Ms. Ramona said, how many have raised their hands, or Ms. Barbara, how many have raised their hands and seen marriages versus funerals? So again, I think any exposure in the right way is going to be a great value add, because at least they're being exposed in a positive direction.
All right, well, ladies, thank you very much. I know these discussions could continue on for a long time. Thank you for your wisdom and for all your hard work in those classrooms. And I want to thank everyone on the Zoom call for attending the training today. And I want to call your attention to the fact that we're going to be having a SurveyMonkey link in the chat, and we really need your feedback. We desire, to get good feedback from you. It's not a long survey. It's not going to take you forever to fill out, but please give us your feedback on how you felt about today and about today's sessions. So with that, I will wish you well and have a good evening until tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow afternoon.